The last time someone held my hand was at Harold's funeral. That was 3 years ago. My daughter Sarah quickly pulled away when the dirt hit the casket, like my grief might be contagious. I should have known then what was coming. I've been married for 61 years. 61 years of good morning kisses, of Harold's rough carpenter hands smoothing my hair, of falling asleep with his arm around me every single night. And now my own children act like wanting that again is some kind of sickness. "Mom, you're 83, Sarah said last month, when I mentioned maybe joining one of those senior social groups at the community center. The way she said 83, like it was a prison sentence, like reaching this age meant I'd forfeited my right to human touch, to companionship, to feeling alive in my own skin. But here's what nobody tells you about getting old. Your body might creak, your skin might wrinkle, but inside you're still the same person who used to dance in the kitchen to Sinatra, who used to feel butterflies when Harold would come home from a job site covered in sawdust and sweat. That woman doesn't just disappear because you hit some arbitrary number. Last Tuesday, I was at the Walmart pharmacy waiting for my blood pressure medication. There was this gentleman ahead of me, maybe 75, struggling with his prescription bottles. His hands were shaking. Parkinson's, I could tell. Without thinking, I stepped forward and helped him organize his pills into his weekly organizer. When I handed it back to him, our fingers touched for maybe 3 seconds. 3 seconds, and I felt more human than I had in months. "Thank you, dear," he said. His name was Frank. We talked for 20 minutes in that fluorescent-lit pharmacy aisle about everything and nothing. He'd lost his wife 2 years ago. Cancer. He told me about how he still sets 2 coffee cups out every morning, just from habit. I told him about how I still sleep on Harold's side of the bed because mine feels too cold. When I got home, I was lighter somehow. Sarah was there waiting, probably checking to make sure I hadn't fallen or forgotten to take my pills. "You were gone for 2 hours, Mom. I was worried." But then she saw something in my face, some spark she hadn't seen in years, and instead of relief, I saw suspicion. "I met someone at the pharmacy," I said. Innocent enough, right? But the way her face changed, like I'd confessed to robbing a bank. "Someone? What kind of someone?" The questions came fast. How old was he? What did he want? Did he ask for money? Did I give him our address? I tried to explain that it was just a conversation, just 2 people connecting over shared loneliness. But Sarah was already in full protection mode. "Mom, You can't just talk to strange men. What if he's one of those predators who targets elderly women? Elderly women. She said it like we're a separate species, incapable of judgment, automatically vulnerable to any man who shows us basic kindness. When I was her age, I was running a household, raising 3 children, helping Harold build his contracting business from nothing. Now I can't have a conversation at the pharmacy without being treated like I've lost my mind. I'm not some helpless victim, Sarah. I'm a grown woman who's been taking care of herself longer than you've been alive. But she wasn't hearing me. What you need is to focus on your health, on staying safe. Maybe we should look into that assisted living place on Maple Street. They have activities, supervised socialization. Supervised socialization. Like I'm a child who needs a playground monitor. The worst part is, I could see she genuinely thought she was helping. In her mind, she was protecting her poor, confused mother from making dangerous decisions. She couldn't see that what she was really protecting me from was feeling alive. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Frank, about how natural it felt to just help someone, to have someone say thank you and mean it. I thought about Harold, about how he never treated my desire for affection like it had an expiration date. Even at 79, the year he died, he would still reach for my hand during our evening news programs, still kiss my forehead when he passed my chair. I realized I was grieving more than Harold. I was grieving touch itself. The casual brush of fingers when someone hands you change at the grocery store. A hug that lasts longer than the obligatory pat on the back my children give me. Someone's hand on your shoulder when you're telling a difficult story. These tiny moments of human connection that most people take for granted. They become precious to me because they were so rare. 3 days later, I did something that would horrify Sarah if she knew. I went to the senior center anyway. Not the one she'd researched with the supervised socialization, but the one downtown where they have dance lessons on Thursday afternoons. I hadn't danced since Harold got too sick to stand for more than a few minutes. The instructor was a woman about my age named Betty, with silver hair and laugh lines that said she'd lived a full life. First time? She asked. I nodded. Well, we're not training for Broadway here. We're just moving to the music and enjoying ourselves. She had this easy way of taking my arm, of showing me the basic steps that felt so normal, so human. There were maybe 15 people there, mostly women, a few men. Everyone was over 65. Everyone had stories written in their faces, and nobody acted like wanting to move your body to music was inappropriate for your age. When the instructor called for partner dancing, a gentleman named Robert asked if I'd like to try. Nothing romantic, nothing scandalous, just 2 people sharing a waltz to some old Nat King Cole song. His hand on my back, my hand on his shoulder. It was the first intentional touch I'd experienced since Harold's funeral. Not medicinal touch from a doctor or nurse. Not the hasty, duty-bound hugs from my children, but touch for the simple joy of human connection. I almost cried right there on that scuffed community center floor. "You're a natural," Robert said, as we swayed to the music. He was being kind. I was rusty as an old gate hinge, but it didn't matter. For 4 minutes, I remembered what it felt like to be a woman instead of just somebody's elderly mother. Most people walk away when stories get this heavy. The fact that you're still listening, that means something. When I got home that evening, Sarah was in my driveway again. Apparently, she'd called to check on me, and I hadn't answered because I'd been dancing. The panic in her voice when she started her interrogation told me everything I needed to know about how she saw me now. "Where were you, Mom? I called 3 times. I was about to call the police." I made the mistake of telling her the truth about the dance class, about Robert, about how wonderful it felt to move to music again. I thought she'd be happy that I was getting out, being social, taking care of my mental health the way she was always nagging me to do. Instead, her face went white. "Mom, you can't be dancing with strange men. What would Dad think?" What would Dad think? Harold, who taught me to swing dance in our tiny first apartment, who never missed an opportunity to spin me around the kitchen when a good song came on the radio. Harold, who used to say that as long as we could still dance together, we'd never really be old. "Your father would want me to be happy," I said quietly. But Sarah was already spiraling. "What if you fall? What if one of these men takes advantage of you? What if someone sees you and thinks—" She couldn't finish the sentence, but I knew what she was thinking. "What if someone thinks my 83-year-old mother is some kind of—" What? Floozy? Fool? Woman with needs and desires beyond her prescription medications and doctor's appointments? "Sarah," I said, trying to keep my voice level, "I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not being reckless. I'm just living." "Living?" She repeated the word like I'd spoken in a foreign language. "Mom, you're 83 years old. This isn't living. This is— I don't know what this is, but it's not normal." There it was, not normal. Like there's a handbook somewhere that says at 83, you're supposed to sit in your living room, take your pills, watch your shows, and wait quietly for death. Like wanting companionship, touch, connection, the basic human needs that have kept our species alive for thousands of years, suddenly become shameful the moment you qualify for senior discounts. My son David called that night. Sarah had told him about my concerning behavior. The conversation was worse than I'd expected. David has always been more direct than his sister, less concerned with my feelings. "Mom, we're worried about you. This isn't like you." "What isn't like me?" "This, whatever this is, chasing men around town, acting like you're 25 again." Chasing men around town. I'd had one conversation at a pharmacy and attended one dance class, and suddenly I was some kind of predator prowling Walmart for unsuspecting widowers. "David, I met a nice man at the pharmacy who needed help with his medications. I went to one dance class. How is that chasing anyone around?" "It's the pattern, Mom. First it's helping some stranger, then it's secret dance classes. What's next? Are you going to start dating?" The way he said dating, like it was the most ridiculous, disgusting concept he could imagine. His 83-year-old mother, someone who had loved and been loved, who had desires and dreams and a heart that still beat with hope, considering companionship. "And what if I was?" I asked. The silence on the phone was deafening. "Mom," his voice was gentler now, like he was talking to someone with dementia. "You're not thinking clearly. This isn't what people your age do." People your age. As if reaching 83 automatically disqualified me from the human experience. As if love, attraction, companionship, even simple friendship, became inappropriate past some arbitrary birthday. "Your father died 3 years ago," I said. "I've been alone in this house for 3 years. I sleep in a bed that feels too big. I eat dinner watching the news by myself. I go entire days without speaking to another human being, unless one of you calls to check on me, like I'm a houseplant you're worried might be dying. Is it really so terrible that I want something more?" "You have us, Mom. You have your grandchildren." "I have visits, David. I have duty calls and wellness checks and people who love me but see me as a responsibility, not as a person. Do you remember the last time any of you asked me about my dreams? My thoughts about something that wasn't my health or my safety?" He couldn't answer because we both knew it had been years. That conversation ended with David saying he and Sarah were going to look into options for me. Options, like I was a problem that needed solving rather than a person who needed understanding. 2 weeks later, they presented their solution. Sunny Meadows Assisted Living. Not because I couldn't take care of myself. I still drive, cook, clean, manage my finances, remember to take my medications. But because they decided my desire for human connection was evidence of declining judgment. "It's not a nursing home, Mom," Sarah said, sliding the brochure across my kitchen table. "It's independent living with built-in social activities. You'll have people your own age to talk to." People my own age. All carefully screened, all in the same situation, all considered safe because we'd be contained together where we couldn't disturb the younger world with our inappropriate desires for touch, for love, for life. I looked at the brochure. Smiling elderly faces engaged in supervised crafts, playing board games, participating in wellness activities, all wholesome, all sanitized, all designed to keep us busy without letting us feel truly alive. What if I don't want to go? Mom, David's voice had that practiced patience that meant he'd rehearsed this conversation. We're not forcing you, but we can spend every day wondering if you're making poor decisions, putting yourself at risk. Poor decisions. Talking to Frank at the pharmacy was a poor decision. Dancing with Robert was a poor decision. Wanting to feel connected to other human beings was a poor decision. I'm going to ask you something, I said, looking at both my children, these adults I'd raised and loved and sacrificed for. Do you remember being young and in love? They exchanged glances. Do you remember what it felt like when your spouse touched your hand, kissed your forehead, held you when you were sad? Do you remember feeling like you'd die if you couldn't have that connection, that intimacy, that simple physical comfort of knowing someone cared about you enough to touch you gently? Sarah shifted uncomfortably. Mom, that's different. We were young. Why is it different? Because I'm 83. My skin has wrinkles and my hands have age spots. Because I've lived long enough that my desire for human touch is somehow inappropriate. I stood up from my kitchen table, this table where I'd served them thousands of meals, helped with countless homework assignments, listened to their problems, and celebrated their victories. I want you to understand something, I said. Inside this old body is the same woman who fell in love with your father, who danced with him at our wedding, who held you both when you were babies, and thought my heart might explode from how much love I could feel. That woman doesn't disappear because you hit 80. She doesn't become asexual and satisfied with loneliness because her children think she should be. I was crying now, but I kept talking. I want someone to hold my hand while we watch a movie. I want someone to dance with on a Thursday afternoon. I want someone to say good morning to who means it, who's happy to see me, not because I'm their obligation, but because they genuinely enjoy my company. Is that really so shameful? Is wanting to feel alive really such a disease? The room was quiet except for the tick of the grandfather clock Harold had built in our second year of marriage. Finally, Sarah spoke, and her voice was softer than it had been in weeks. Mom, we just don't want you to get hurt. Hurt? I laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Sweetheart, I'm dying of loneliness. I'm withering away from lack of human touch, from having no one to share my thoughts with, from going to bed every night knowing that tomorrow will be exactly like today, safe, supervised, and empty. What could hurt more than that? There are more stories I need to get off my chest. If you want to hear them, hit subscribe. I'll be here. I didn't move to Sunny Meadows. After our conversation, something shifted between us. Sarah and David didn't suddenly become enthusiastic about my social life, but they stopped treating it like a medical emergency. I kept going to the Thursday dance classes. Frank from the pharmacy and I started meeting for coffee on Sunday afternoons at the Denny's on Route 9. Nothing romantic. We're both still in love with our deceased spouses, but we've become friends in that deep way that only happens when two people have lived enough life to appreciate simple companionship. Robert and I dance together most Thursdays, and sometimes we sit on the bench afterward and talk about our children, our memories, our hopes for however many years we have left. Last week, he helped me plant flowers in Harold's memorial garden. When we finished, dirty and tired and satisfied, he squeezed my shoulder and said, "Harold would be proud of how beautiful you've made this." It was just a touch, just a moment of human connection, but it reminded me that I'm still here, still deserving of kindness, still worthy of the gentle touch of another person's hand. My children may never fully understand that getting old doesn't mean becoming less human. They may always see my desire for companionship as something slightly embarrassing, inappropriate for someone my age. But I've learned that their discomfort with my humanity doesn't make me less human. I'm 83 years old. My skin is wrinkled. My hair is white. My body moves slower than it used to. But my heart still beats with the same rhythm it did when I was 20, 30, 50. I still dream, still hope, still need the touch of another human being to remind me that I'm alive. And you know what? That's not a disease. That's what makes us human. No matter how many birthdays we've celebrated, no matter how many years we've survived, the need for connection, for touch, for love, that doesn't have an expiration date, and I'm done pretending it does.